This week we're tackling one of the models I've had in my pile of shame for a few years now, the Balrog, and I imagine, like a few of you, I've just been too scared to get him painted up. Well, that ends today. Let's get started. Let's get snipping, sanding and removing those pesky mould lines. For sanding, I use these flexible sanding sticks. They come in a range of grits, so you can start with a coarser one and gradually work up to a finer grit for a smooth finish. And for those mould lines and little stubs left over after snipping, I haven't found anything better than the blunt backside of a craft knife. When it comes to gluing plastic, I am a huge fan of Tamiya Extra Thin. The built-in brush makes it really easy to apply, and the solvent slightly melts the plastic, fusing the pieces together for a strong, durable bond. You get a little bit of working time, and if needed, applying extra pressure can help close small gaps or align pieces more precisely as they fuse. The Balrog comes with a couple of weapon options, a flaming sword and a whip. I want to be able to swap between them, so I'm adding magnets to make the weapons interchangeable. Now, the whip was pretty heavy and long, so I went with one that's slightly larger than the arm itself, but it is low profile, and while you can see it, I don't think it will look too out of place once painted. Even with my expert gluing skills, there were still a few gaps between pieces. To fill them, I used green stuff. It's a two-part epoxy putty that's ideal for gap filling and minor sculpting. You just mix the yellow and blue parts together until it turns green. Then I rolled it into a very thin sausage and pressed it into the gaps using a few soft sculpting tools. You get a couple of hours working time, and it takes around 24 hours to fully cure. So I set the model aside and came back to it the next day. So we're gonna do a quick priming now. I'm going to stick with my technique. I want to know if the technique I'm currently building actually works for these bigger models. So we're going to be using our black, our grey and then the white. So let's get started. Right, I've just done the first coat of black, and I thought I was being super clever by not sticking the model together because then it'd be easier to get underneath and stuff. Turns out it's just a pain. Like, the model just keeps falling over, it doesn't stand up properly, lost it, I thought it was going to chip a few times. So anyway, I'm giving up on that. I'm going to glue it all together now before I do the next layer of undercoat. Before painting the full model, I wanted to do a little practice with the fire. I quickly modelled and printed a few flame pieces to test on, trying out a couple of different methods. I was looking for a quick and effective way to paint fire. What worked best for me was using speed paints. Starting with a layer of water to help the paint flow, then applying Zealot yellow across most of the flames. Blending that into Nuclear Sunrise, and finishing the tips with bright red. Once dry, I lightly dry brush black onto the very tips of the flames, adding some great contrast. As a little test for the Balrog skin, I wanted to create a red undertone, so I base coated one of the hands in bright red, then applied a thin down coat of grim black over the top. The result was even better than I'd hoped. it left a fiery, glowing effect beneath the surface. To highlight the skin, I used a gentle dry brush of Dawnstone over raised areas. So with that, we've now got the sort of paint job that we're going for. I've covered everything, and now it's really time to move on to the full model. I'm still not 100% sure, do I start with the body or do I start with the flame? So I'm going to have a think about that, and no doubt when I'm back you'll see which way I've chosen to do it. I ended up on the decision to go flame first. My thought process being, I can cover things with black, I can't cover them with yellow. Following the exact same technique we have just covered, water, Zealot yellow, sunrise orange, bright red, dry brush with black. I get started on painting all the flames, starting with the flames on the base and then the main flame on his back. We'll begin on the skin now, and this step took quite a lot of bravery. Let's do that red undercoat. Again, I'll cover the whole area in water and put a layer of bright red. Well, I have to say that stage is actually pretty scary, just throwing all that red on after we spent a bit of time on the flames. I mean, it's quite a quick process overall, but I'm actually really happy with the way he's coming out. I know it might not look like it right now, it looks a little bit like he's been out in the sun just a little bit too long. It's going to take a while for that to dry, so let's let that dry and we'll come back and we'll put on that black layer. I mixed up a batch of Grim Black, thinned 50-50 with speed paint medium. I don't think I let the first layer dry long enough, and I was a bit too aggressive with my brush strokes. As you can probably see, it reactivated the red base and pulled some of the paint off. Once I noticed, I switched to a gentler approach, and that seemed to stop it from happening. After it dried, the coverage was a little patchy, so I switched to the airbrush for the next layer. Speed paints airbrush really well. They're an absolute delight to use. Okay, I think that worked out really well. I'm really pleased with how his wings look. Hopefully that sort of picks up on camera. You can still see some of the red through there, but it's a much more even coating now. So the next stage that we're going to deal with is we've got all this sort of cracked skin on here, and we need that essentially to be look a little bit more like lava. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a oil wash. And it's not going to be a wash so much as I've really watered down some titanium white, and when you touch that into the recesses it should flow. I believe it's called capillary action, but don't hold me to that. I'll probably check it before I upload this video, but I believe it is called capillary action. And we're just going to use a small brush, touch it into there, and then we can leave it for 24 hours to dry. This was a new technique for me. I've seen it used a few times, but I've never tried it myself, so I took another bravery pill and gave it a go. Using paint thinner, I guessed the dilution for the oil paint. I think I may have gone a little too thin, as it started to cloud over the surface instead of staying purely in the crevices. Still, I pressed on and applied it across the model and left it to dry. Good morning everybody, it's Sunday morning. I'm continuing with the Balrog. The cows keep mooing outside, so we might pick them up. Hopefully they don't get too mooey throughout the day. With all the white now dry, I applied a layer of Zealot yellow. instantly transforming those white cracks into glowing fire bursting through the skin. We're moving on now really from this messy stage where we're applying lots of washes and we're not being too overly careful about the placement, and we're really going to be focusing in now on tidying up all those details. So next stage is painting all the sort of black on the skin that stands out, and hopefully that should give us that additional contrast and give that fire a boost. So let's go. At this point, I start breaking out my nicer brushes and really focus on getting everything as neat as possible. I'm using a thinned down Abaddon black, carefully working around any areas where white is still showing and darkening the raised areas around the cracks. This is the kind of work where I throw on an audiobook and just get into the flow. Right now, I'm re-listening to The Magician by Raymond E. Feist, my gateway into fantasy before Lord of the Rings, and a book that still holds a special place in my heart. Highly recommended. We have all the black now painted back in, so everything looks a little bit more highlighted. I'm just debating now whether to go for a dry brush or whether to highlight. Now there's a lot of little sculpted details, and I did dry brush the hands and that looked good. I guess I can always go for, I'm gonna go for the dry brush, and I think we'll see where it's at after that, because I think I can still do more with the recesses. They're still a little bit bitty after that wash. I realise I'm going all over the place here. Let's do the dry wash. Let's do the dry brush next. For this stage, I'm using a new, super soft makeup brush and highlighting with Dawnstone. I load a small amount of paint into the bristles, then wipe most of it off onto a paper towel. And from there, it's just a matter of lightly brushing over the black areas. This catches the raised details and gives us a nice, quick, easy highlight. Right, we are up to the stage where lots of this is actually completed now, and I'm starting to look at it and think, what do I need to do to sort of take it to the next level, to essentially finish it off? And there's a few things I'm sort of looking at. I'm quite happy with the skin, although it looks a bit matte, so I think I'm going to do a satin varnish, but I'll probably leave that till the end. There's other little bits, like the fire is not quite as bright as I'd like it to be, so I'm probably going to break out some normal acrylics and do some direct highlighting on there. I think some of the cracks in the skin look really good. I like the sort of transition between the orange and the yellow, but some are missing completely, which we obviously didn't get when we did the oil wash. So I'm going to go through and carefully pick those out again with some normal acrylics. And I really like the wings, but I think the sort of bony structures, which look very skeletal, matching too well with the wings. So I think what I'm going to do with that is give them a pure black, except for on like the knuckle bones, and that should separate them off nicely from the wings. I think once that's done, we can see where we're at. I think I can do some extra highlighting on the face as well. The nostrils need some fire in them, and the mouth needs a little bit of sorting out, as do the teeth. And also I can see the nails on the feet and the hand, they need doing, so I'll probably do that again in pure black, kind of like the bony texture that I'm going to do on the wing. So with that, let's get cracking and get those done. Now we've got a little checklist to finish this model off. For the base, I'm keeping it simple, a coat of grim black and a quick dry brush. I'll come back to the finer details later. For the face, I want to frame it by painting the horns in a lighter grey, giving them a null oil wash, and then a gentle dry brush to pick out the edges. The wing bones just need a bit of separation from the rest of the wings, so I'm giving them a solid coat of black. For any cracks that were missed, or areas that aren't quite bright enough, I go in with a standard acrylic paint to touch them up. And I also add some extra glow into the eyes and nose. And finally, let's seal everything in and remove that matte look with a coat of satin varnish. He's finished. I'm so pleased with him. I think he looks great. I can't believe I've finally got a painted Balrog after he's been sitting in a box for 2 years. We're just too scared really to put him together and paint him. I can't believe how well he's turned out. Turns out it's not that much effort really to get him painted, but I really enjoyed the whole process and learned again a few things along the way. I spent a little bit of extra time on the base. Basically there's a shield and an axe. I just gave them a silver coating, and then I used a bit of dry pigment powder. Well, now he's done, let's take him on a little tour of Moria and get some shots and see what he looks like.